Okay, so we're back, fam, and I asked you a question before the break, and I got this great article up. I read it several months ago, and like I said, I watch my shows on my RT, I watch my crosstalk, and I hear a lot of the media, that those particular media saying that they fear the left is going to eat themselves with identity politics. You got any opinions about that?
I 100% agree with that. Go. I mean, I think there's so much of the holier thou. I am so much more woke and progressive and aware that I'm going to police every single word that comes out of your mouth. Thereby, you turn off people who disagree with you. Further,
yes,
you also turn off people who may agree with you but just don't like the way you're doing that. And then you create this sort of fixation on the language that we're using, or without taking in why. We're saying things like, for instance, the symbolism in Kamala Harris's run and the way people speak about her versus her policy.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Kamala Harris is a sellout. She's bought by corporations. You can't say that. That's racist. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. No, you can't talk like that. First of all, normally people pointing that out to me are white people. Number one. Number two, who want to be like super woke and be like, okay, number one. Number two, like, you're completely focusing on the symbolism of the language, ignoring my very well intention, because I know that I'm not talking about her in terms of a racial narrative. I'm not speaking about her race. I'm talking about her policy. Then you go and ignore the policy that I'm mentioning and solely focus on the language being used. And it kills me, because then we're not talking about her failures as a attorney general, her failures as a senator with people of color. Now we're just talking about how I am being offensive because I said she is sold out and she's bought.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if it's Hillary, if it's Obama, her, or anybody else that is a corporate type of candidate. I will use that same language. And that does not mean at all that I refuse to understand, that I'm like, I don't care about race. No, that has nothing to do with it. It is because I care about race and poor people and people of color that I'm focused on her horrid policy. And,
terrible.
And all they do is draw the focus on the words.
Yeah.
And then we don't get anything done.
I think a lot of times too, fam, it's not just about the virtue signaling, it's about deflecting the argument too as well. It's because they don't have an argument for it, I mean, and I got into this myself about the bought and paid kind of thing and whatnot. I mean, the lady accepted money from Steven Mnuchin, Trump's Treasury Secretary. You know what I'm saying? She's been seeing Wall Street executives going to New York. She takes money from the private prison industrial complex. I mean, what more? I mean, why do they got to twist the language, fam? Because this article that we're going to talk about in The Intercept, this guy hits it on the nose. He talks about contemporary identity politics as opposed to back in the days when they understood that racial issues and capitalism go hand in hand. Now it seems to be separated of some sorts. Can we dive into this argument because this article? Because I'm going to love your viewpoints on this and what you just said. Amen, fam, because I'm glad you say these things. Because being a white male, it's sometimes you're really hard to say these things. But, I don't want the same thing to happen which happened in 2016, fam. The identity politics sometimes caused us from having serious debates, having serious talks about what happened. We were looking at so many things on the surface rather than diving into what the real issues are. So I'm not going to stand back and let it see implode the other day. And when people were saying to friends of mine, gross for saying that she was bought and paid, I'm sorry. She is bought and paid for by, Wall Street, by the prison industrial complex. So let's dive into this article, fam. Let's put it on up. The Intercept, How Identity Politics Has Divided the Left, an interview with Assad Haider. Now, Assad Haider is a teacher, a professor over at UC Santa Cruz in California. And look at some of the stuff he puts up. Okay? We'll start off with. He charts the process which through the revolutionary visions of the Black freedom movement, which he understood racism and capitalism to be two sides of the same coin, have been largely replaced with a narrow and limited understanding of identity.
Exactly.
Fam.
Exactly what we're saying. I mean, back in the civil rights movement, we had Martin Luther King, who was a socialist through and through. And the civil rights movement not only attacked and promoted civil rights issues, but also tied it with economics. Okay, because all poor people are oppressed people. And people like Malcolm X, who were also super leftist and super had Marxism embedded through and through, were also tackling that kind of mentality. We were all oppressed people under the oligarchy, so to speak. They never once acted like that it was only the identity of what they were doing that was the key. It was the entire structure of a system that led to two sides being pitted against each other.
Yeah. What about the next one? Let's read this one, because this is the framework identity reduces politics to who you are as an individual and gaining recognition as an individual rather than your membership into collectivity and to a collective struggle against oppressive social structure, Hader writes. As a result, identity politics paradoxically, how do you say that word?
Paradoxically.
Thank you. Ends up reinforcing the very norms it set out to criticize, fam. Can you give us a little intuition on that?
Yeah, so if you're so focused on the identity politics of someone being, let's say, a person of color or a woman, and that's why you're going to vote for them, even if they are bad for the very people you seek to protect, you are doing the exact opposite of what your initial intent was. So you're going to hurt people of color and black people if you vote for someone like Hillary Clinton, if you vote for someone like Kamala Harris. Obama was a deporter in chief.
Yeah.
I mean, these are truths that are very hard for us to settle with, especially in an era of TDS, where, people are so obsessed with hating on Trump that they completely neglect everything else that's going on.
I mean, the whole thing about it is, I think that, a lot of people think they're being, we use the term virtue signaling because they're being virtuous or they're being compassionate or they're being loving, and they think it's the right thing to do, but actually it's having a reversed effect.
Yeah.
And it's actually harming more than helping and stuff. And it's like this one group of people trying to speak for another group of people rather than allowing people to speak for themselves at times and whatnot.
Exactly.
And maybe I'm just taking it out of context. Listen, as we're going along with this, I want to talk about these things because I believe it has hurt us. As I talk to all my guests in my restaurants, which are a lot of Trump supporters, we have people with money and stuff like that, they always mention the identity politics, and it made it easy for them to walk away from the Democratic Party. Okay, so when I bring these things up and I want to have these discussions, is because I don't want to lose again because this tactic is being put into play, and who's really diving into it are these progressive establishment kind of people who are using it for deflection and kind of tweaking or signaling or playing with the emotions of the activists who then in part kind of repeat the same kind of rhetoric and dialogue. Exactly. So I think I want it stopped so we don't let it hurt us, so we can have the conversations.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like Jonathan Pye said, everybody's going around calling everybody a Nazi nowadays. It's ridiculous. Let's go to the next part. Can you read this one, fam?
Yeah. Identity, he argues, has become abstracted from our material relationships with the state and society, which make it consequential to our lives. So when identity serves as the basis for one's political beliefs, it manifests in division and moralizing attitudes instead of facilitating solidarity. So you're so focused on being uber moral and showing how superior you are and how clean you are and how you're so aware of racial relationships that you fail in forming solidarity with these people and actually listening to how we build and move forward together. That's literally what it is. And I couldn't agree more with this article. I think this is an amazing article.
When people were saying that we were calling Hillary Clinton a corporate whore, is it really wrong to say that? Because that was the attack then. Now it's, you can't say bought and sold for, because but all the connections that we are saying in the dialogue we are using, they are true.
But I think even something like corporate whore, you can probably I get it. Whore doesn't mean anything by itself. Bought and sold means something by itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, whore is just it's an insult that I would say even stay away from, because people are going to use that against you. And I get what you're saying. But at the end of the day, saying someone is bought and sold by corporations is a fact. It's not an insult. It's not anything. It is a fact if they are. And that's something that they can't even attack because it's the truth. So
I think we have one more part about this. He charts out right there, I think.
I think you already said that, right?
Did we do that one? Yeah, let's go. It's a mistaken identity. Okay, and just ending up when he says it's a mistaken. Assad says he argues that contemporary identity politics is the neutralization of movements against racial oppression, rather than the progression of the grassroots struggle against racism.
It neutralizes you because you're literally not doing anything except arguing with each other over words that mean one thing to you, mean something else to someone else, and you are literally not progressing in the grassroots against actual racism, against the actual oppressors. And this is something that I will gladly have a debate with on any of my friends who disagree with me, because I know I have very close friends who disagree with me when it comes to this kind of thing. And it's not ignoring the actual plight of the oppressed people. It's actually highlighting it by not focusing on things that are just there to distract us, so to speak.
I mean, you guys got to check out that article. It was pretty amazing because it talks about when the term identity politics was coined or framed or whatever, and it was a group of in the 70s, the early 70s, of black lesbian women who just formed coalitions and in solidarity. In other words, they didn't attack the people next to them. They didn't attack their allies, especially over language nowadays. I mean, it's getting really, the tone policing is just going to hurt us at the end. And if we don't change it, it's Donald Trump all over again. And people need to get that through their heads. I always say this, and I looked at a lot of people, they want to talk about why Donald Trump won the election. The two main reasons were NAFTA and identity politics. You know what I'm saying? I understand that there is a form of privilege. I understand there is an advantage I have. But when you're telling that to people all across the Rust Belt who can't even pay rent, and you're uber focusing and hyper focusing on that rather than the struggle we're all living together, you're just doomed to fail, fam. And we just got thrown to the wolves.
Okay, and quickly, I just wanted to go over this video of this New York Times journalist
right above the identity politics,
because I do want to separate how people think of Tulsi Gabbard and people think of Kamala Harris, because Kamala's gotten nothing but accolades from every mainstream media out there. But this New York Times journalist went on Joe Rogan's show and didn't even know exactly why she didn't like Tulsi, and it showed, and it was really unprofessional and ridiculous.
And this was sent in by our audience. I just want to say that if you got a time after, like and share, but this was sent in to us on our show, so we want to thank you. We're going to use the material you send us when you educate us. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
What do you think happens with him?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who can beat him. I don't know who can beat him. Who do you think can beat him?
That's a good question. I don't know. Hillary can't. I'm so worried.
Duh.
Yeah, but I'm so worried she's going to run again. She's going to muscle her way to the top.
I don't know who can beat him right now. And I don't know.
Why do you think that?
Right, and the question, is
as
like,
things keep going further and further south, what about someone who is a centrist Democrat? Doesn't that make more sense? That someone who's a rational person, who's on the right, who's going to look at this person who's maybe economically conservative but socially liberal and say, this is really where I'm
unless they
leaning
run
towards.
Someone on the far left and like on an identity politics platform. That's what scares me.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Well, could it though? Because
I don't think so.
I don't know, because Trump's whole thing was, screw the center. I just need to make my base go ape shit crazy for me.
But they're still ape shit crazy, and no matter what he does.
I know, and I'm worried that the Democrats are going to try and replicate that strategy and be like, we just need to make our base go ape shit crazy, rather than running someone that can win the center.
I see where you're going, but I think that this is maybe my liberal bias, but I think that people on the left wouldn't fall for that the same way people on the right would. I don't think people on the left who saw someone who went ape shit, full woke, far left, I think there's a lot of people in the center who be like, well, I'm just going to vote libertarian, man. I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson or some shit.
But okay, so who's in right now? So we have Kamala, Kirsten
Tulsi
Gillibrand. Oh, monstrous.
Monstrous?
Ideas.
Well, when she was 22, she had...
No, she's an Assad toady.
What does that mean?
She is
What's a toady?
I think that I used that word correctly. Jamie, can you check what toady means?
Like toeing the line? Is that what it means?
No, I think it's like a... Toadie.
What does that mean?
I think it means what I think it means.
There you go.
Toady. Definition of toadies. A person who flatters or defers to others for self-serving reasons.
A sycophant.
So she's an Assad sycophant. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's known about her.
Like, what did she say that
we have to look.
her?
I don't remember the details.
We probably should say that before we say that about her. We should probably read it rather.
Well, I have read it.
No, I mean, we should right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Just so we know what she said.
Look up
I've had her
Tulsi
on
Gabbard.
here before.
Look
and
up
I really enjoyed talking to her. I like her a lot.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I like talking to her.
Okay.
I like talking to her. I don't know about.
I think she's like the mother lode of bad ideas.
Whoa.
I'm pretty positive about that, especially on Assad. But maybe I'm wrong.
Sounds positive.
I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, my take on her was that I think as a person who's coming from the left, who's also a veteran, and is very articulate and sensible and a woman, and in talking to her, we didn't get into Assad or any of those things, but talking to her about what she feels is wrong with the current administration and the way things are running and a direction she thinks things could go in. She had some very promising ideas. I didn't know about this.
But did she ever apologize for believing in conversion therapy?
I didn't even know she believed in conversion therapy.
Am I crazy?
Is that real?
I'm almost positive this is real. I think her father ran
when you say conversion therapy, you're talking about gay people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm
sure.
I think that's enough.
Pretty positive.
I
think.
Yeah. So my whole point of showing that terrible thing was so everybody could see that we easily fall into this kind of drone-like mentality of repeating things we hear from other people or from the media or things we read without actually fact checking them. And, calling Tulsi an Assad toady. First of all, Tulsi met with Assad, just like she met with all kinds of people, as we've said on the show numerous times, as you can go back and look at any actual document and documentation of her travels as well. Her meeting with Assad doesn't make her a toady, but it actually makes her someone that is trying to find a solution. But this same narrative has been spread by everybody against Tulsi. Like everybody that has something against her has always mentioned Assad. Has, first of all, how do you know that the chemical attacks were even real?
They were all debunked.
They were. I mean, if you watch media that's not from the West, you literally see how it doesn't make sense. Yeah. None of that makes sense. And, we could do an entire other show on that, and we've touched on that before, but it's literally, it has been debunked, first of all. But aside from what you think of Assad, a person that's a leader, that's an ambassador, is going to meet with other people.
Should and if meet you don't have people.
Absolutely, to find solutions. And if you're just going to go around repeating things as a journalist, and her name is Barry Weiss, no,
Barry with an eye.
What kind of credibility are you going to have? And this is the kind of these are the kind of people that are in the New York Times that are real journalists with real credentials, credentials and so on and so forth. And they can't even speak truth because they are so brainwashed by what they are told.
Yeah.
That
they got to earn that paycheck, fam, and they got to spew that narrative. And can't you just see? I mean, look at that lady. You can just see how they're the lapdog for the establishment. Okay, they don't want people like Tulsi getting in there. Oh, it's known. I'm pretty sure. I think it's like, oh, just put that narrative out there. Don't do any research on it. Don't even look about the Assad chemical attacks, which have been debunked. I'm talking the first one, fam, years ago. They've been debunked every single which way since Tuesday. So I don't even want to hear it anymore. It's just disgusting. Right now, Tulsi's number one on my list until somebody else announces.
All right, and let's just move on. Before we move on to Venezuela, I did want to put up one little bracket from a black woman named Shanita Hubbard. And she says, a black woman announced her run for POTUS today, and I wish I was more excited. My thoughts on prison reform have been clear and consistent, which is why Kamala Harris gives me a pause. Her policy history includes supporting 3 strikes, a truancy policy that threatened parents with 1 year of incarceration, and my personal fave, she worked to block the release of nonviolent offenders from overcrowded prisons on the grounds that if they got parole, prisons would be losing important labor pool. I still see red when I think about that. So yes, this HBCU grad and member of the D9 gives me pause. I will wait and see how this plays out while I remain informed, because my people cannot afford to be excited based on symbolism again.
Who's the again about, fam? Say it, fam. Who's the again, fam?
Barack Obama, my
Barack
man.
Hussein Obama. Let's get on to the next one, fam, because we got a long show going on, but we have to cover this stuff because this issue right here, this is something that personal to Fam and I. It's one of our big issues about why there's this migration problem. Fam has been living down at the border. She's been down there several times, noticing that most of the people are coming from Honduras.